going on, guys? Mojo here. Today we're going to work on my Taco once again. I had a check engine light, P0304 misfire and cylinder number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and change the ignition coil and change all the spark plugs. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the most efficient way I know how. And hopefully you like the video. Here are the tools I'm going to use today. If I add a tool, I'll be sure to tell you in the video if I don't have it out here now. See, on the left I have multiple extensions. This is particularly important for the driver's side portion of the motor. If you remember earlier in the video, there were a couple hoses and wires in the way. Having multiple extensions just makes it a little bit easier to access those spark plugs. Flathead screwdriver, that's to gently apply pressure to any electrical connectors, take those off. Anti-seize lubricant, this is about $1.50 at any auto parts store. It's a cheap investment to make sure that your spark plugs do not seize and rust inside your motor. Make sure you apply this to the spark plugs before you install them. It's a 5/8 inch spark plug socket. As you see, there's a rubber grommet or gasket in there that pretty much pulls on the spark plug when you extract it. I have a 10 and 12 millimeter sockets, deep sockets. You can use regular sockets shorter sockets if you want to. With the extensions, it really doesn't matter. A magnetic extractor. I use this if my socket, spark plug socket, fails me for some reason. This is my backup to put down in the spark plug hole and extract the spark plug. This is a good tool just to have in your arsenal anyways. So if you see this in the store, pick it up if you work on your car on a regular basis. Then I like to use a articulated socket wrench so I can get those different angles. Okay, if you can see in there, you see there's 3, 1, 2, and then a third one back there, 3 spark plugs, boots, and spark plugs inside. That's on the driver's side. On the passenger side, you have another 3 spark plugs and ignition coils. Okay, I'm a big proponent of removing items or parts of your car to make the job easier than trying to work around them if you can. In this particular case, I'm going to remove, well, not remove entirely, but shift my air intake pipe to get better clearance to the spark plugs. To shift this out the way so I get easy access to those 3 spark plugs and ignition coils, I'm going to loosen that bolt 10 millimeter, loosen that bolt 10 millimeter, loosen that bolt 10 millimeter, and loosen that bolt 10 millimeter. And that will essentially allow me to break this off and shift it to the side. 10 millimeter. You can use any length socket. But remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Now we have easy access to all 3 ignition coils and spark plugs to take it off. Just another tip, I usually put a rubber lace glove on my left hand to grab bolts. That way they don't slip. I use just your regular cloth glove on the right hand, the one I'm actually using for the socket wrench and all that stuff, that has the actual padding on there. So this is the grab bolts, twist, that way I don't drop them. And that's to, actually get my hands in there and not bust up my knuckles. Okay, I've removed the first spark plug I'm gonna do. This is the passenger side. I removed the ignition coil. It's just one 10 millimeter bolt that you remove. Then I undid this electrical connector. Alright, first spark plug extracted. Okay, as you see, I like to pre-prep my spark plugs. I got the dual tip. These are recommended for the motor dual tip spark plugs. They are NGK brand, but as you see, I've applied the anti-seize compound. You don't have to put a lot. I put about a pea-size dollop on the threads, and then I took my finger and rubbed it around the threads. When I removed the old spark plug, there's not a lot of time where the inside of my motor is exposed to things falling in. So just make sure it makes it a quicker process to replace the spark plug and ensure that nothing of foreign nature falls into your spark plug hole. Okay, another tip is when I put the new spark plug in, I always hand tighten it. I never started off with the socket wrench. Just make sure that you don't cross threads inside the cylinder head, because that would be bad. So I always hand tighten it first using the extension. Sometimes your spark plug socket will get stuck onto the spark plug. Usually what I just do is I take off the socket, I put the extension on, I just wiggle it around and wiggle it and wiggle it, and usually it works itself loose. If that doesn't work, you can always use a pair of needle nose pliers. Now I'm going to reinstall the coil pack, ignition coil. Make sure it's snug on there. Replug the connector. Reapply the 10mm bolt. And I always hand tighten my bolts. Almost always before I even apply the socket, because I'm so paranoid about stripping anything. And as you can see, this is an aftermarket ignition coil. I advise on using a Denso OEM brand, but if you're low on money, you can always get a replica brand, and usually as long as it's within the warranty, as long as it has a good warranty, you should be fine. But this one's been holding up pretty well. So I'll repeat this process for the next 2 spark plugs. Now for the driver's side, which can be a little bit of a headache sometimes, but it's actually not too bad, because you don't have to remove any bolts or any ignition coils. You essentially just twist and pop off the boot, and there you go. There you have access to the spark plugs. And I always do one at a time. I should have said that before. Always do one spark plug at a time. That way I don't mix up the wires at all, and it's easy to put it back. For this one, I'm going to use the dual combination of the extra extension onto my spark plug socket down there. This makes it really easy to get a good angle in there. You still got to work it a little bit. Could get in the way for that middle one, but it's not that bad. You can easily remove it with a 10mm socket, but I chose not to because it wasn't really that bad. It was easy to get to. So in goes the new spark plug. Alright, this back spark plug location, driver's side, yeah, it's the tightest of all 6, but it's definitely not hard. I just used my 3 extensions and I got it down in there, and it's pretty straight shot. There's one hose in the way. I don't know if you can see me shaking it, this one, but it's a very flexible hose, so it's easy to remove. So I'm going to start removing that one. I'm also replacing the spark plug wires I always do one wire at a time. As you see, I've undid the clip here. That was easy. The tab actually lifts up. You lift the tab up and then pull off. And I'll pull off your old spark plug wire. And I just removed it as I went along and all the way over to cylinder 4. So I'm going to reinstall this. Again, don't forget, hand tighten first. Always hand tighten first. That avoids you cross-threading the interior threads. Alright, I just wrapped up the last spark plug and spark plug wire install. As you can see, it's all hooked back in together. I reinstalled the air intake hose, put all my plugs back, tighten up the 1, 2, 3, 4 hose clamps, reinstalled all my vacuum hoses. Just a quick tip: if you start your car and you have any kind of weird idle issues, just make sure you don't pop off any vacuum hose or any kind of hose you may have popped off while you're working in here in this general region. All right, let's start her up. See what we got. Check engine light is off. Sounds good. Idle's good. I don't hear anything weird. I think we're good.